This is Fortress News with Jake Zabel.
Hello and welcome to Fortress News. I'm your host Jake Zabel, and joined with me today is Teeshan Johnson from Cherish Life. For those who listened to my previous episode with Donna Purcell from Cherish Life, on that episode we talked about the new abortion laws in Queensland and what exactly the changes to the laws were. Teeshan has come on for this episode to talk about what we do now moving forward. So Teeshan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Jake. So Teeshan Johnson, Cherish Life Executive Director. So I was the Executive Director for the campaign, the Life campaign, which unfortunately we didn't hold the ground for life. The abortion bill, the termination of pregnancy bill passed, 50 votes to 41. It is typical, though, which is very, very sad, that when it's happened in every state and territory in Australia, except New South Wales, because they haven't had this fight. But when there has been a Labor majority state government with a Labor abortion bill to decriminalise abortion, it's always gone through. No pro-life lobby has been able to hold it back, or no amount of church engagement, which is a very, very sad thing. And it's definitely not the Labor Party I knew when I was a real youngster, and my late grandfather was a Labor politician. It was a very family type party back then, but unfortunately it's got some extreme policies, and late-term abortion being one of them, which is just hideously sad. So yeah, it unfortunately went through. What we're doing now is there's a few things. We're really looking to shift culture. So there is a culture that says, this women's lib thing, my body, my choice. But the thing is, it's not their body, because they're not taking their life, they're taking the baby's life. And the second thing is abortion is female empowerment. Well, it's really not. A lot of women suffer greatly from abortion. And as well as that, since when was it empowering to say it's okay to kill another human being? I mean, that's just completely illogical. So there's a lot of kind of lies and ideological framework underlying this philosophy that's completely wrong. So we're doing a lot of cultural stuff, and we'd invite everyone who cares for life, who loves women and wants good support for women when they're pregnant. And that doesn't equal abortion. It means good support and choice if they want to adopt. Adoption would be an example, or support a single mother in practical ways. But yeah, so we're doing a lot to actually shift culture around the thinking, shift culture about pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy, even when a baby is diagnosed in the womb with a condition, which is very rare, but it does happen. And actually not thinking immediately the doctors kind of put pressure on women to abort, but it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, well, here's a support network. We just got to shift culture. So part of that looks like media. I think media is going to play a big part in that. So this is things like this podcast and social media and even television, etc., is a very big part of it. The other part is we have an election in October 2020, and we really need to replace a lot of these abortion-minded MPs, preferably all of them. I don't think that's going to happen, but 50 of these MPs voted for this late-term abortion bill. We need to replace at least 7 or 8 of them to really ensure we have a majority with pro-life MPs or life espousing MPs. So if they get into government, they can repeal these laws, these late-term, full-term abortion laws, or at least put in huge amount of amendments which will greatly soften the severity of the laws. We can also get things like abortion reformation, so we can actually, it can be very easy for people to even nominate who they want to adopt their baby to. And also something called a private adoption isn't legal in Queensland, but the foster system's broken. Many people will tell you there are only 5 what's called local unknown adoptions last year. So that would be a woman relinquishing her baby and then somebody who didn't know the woman adopting the baby. There's only 5 of those last year in Queensland, and there were 14,000 abortions. So something right there is very wrong. So there's a big need for adoption reform, and there's also a need to obviously modify these hideous laws, preferably repeal them. Apparently legally that's exceptionally hard and it may not happen, but we shall try. And if we can't, we'll put in a lot of amendments, huge amounts of amendments, as many as we can get through Parliament. When I say we, I mean the pro-life lobby will be asking the MPs we help to get in to do this. And another thing would be safeguards women when they are pregnant, things like if they're considering an abortion, mandatory counselling, mandatory cooling off periods, and informed consent conditions, which tells women about the risks of abortion. There's huge amounts of risks, psychological risks, physical risks. There's many well-known studies from around the world saying breast cancer link risk. I know the state government said no, that isn't true, but there's many studies around the world that show there is a link. So, and also telling women about choices other than abortion and supports that are available to help them through a difficult time. So, look, it's incredibly sad. We're heartbroken, but we have to keep going because the unborn need us more than ever now. But we're quite ferocious in a very positive way to actually really be intentional about replacing pro-abortion MPs with pro-life MPs. So that looks like canvassing candidates for a particular area. An example would be the electorate of Mansfield. So Corinne McMillan, Catholic Labor MP, told people in her constituents even a few days before, I don't know how I'm going to vote for this. I'm not really comfortable with it, or I'm not going to vote for it. And then she voted for it. And so she's on a very small margin, which means she'll be easy to get rid of, replace. So hopefully there'll be someone in her electorate, either LNP or another candidate from another party who will be a conservative and pro-life. When I say conservative, I mean pro-life family values. So we can ask our people, we can say, look, we'd recommend you support that person. If you're looking for someone to support our people in those electorates, we recommend you support this person and actually actively campaign for them with the view of replacing them, with removing Corinne and putting them in. And so we'll be looking very closely at all the electorates we think we can probably influence a vote for life, and where we have lots of people, and we will be aiming to take at least 10 seats from pro-abortion MPs, which is more than enough. We'll help take 10 seats, I should say. We're not party ourselves, but that will be more than enough to actually have a change of government. Yeah.
Okay, so probably one of the most helpful things in moving forward is probably education of people.
Yeah.
And so would you be able to basically just educate some people on these new laws here and how they compare? I think looking at stuff, basically every state in Australia except for New South Wales has now basically made abortion legal to some degree, although even New South Wales is similar to how Queensland used to be, and it's not that hard for a woman to get an abortion, even though it's on the criminal code or whatever they have in New South Wales. What kind of information would be important for people to know about this new bill?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the extremity of it, Jake, extremely severe. So it allows abortion on request. So any reason, actually you don't have to give a reason. So it's abortion on demand up to 22 weeks. So what that could look like is a woman at 22 weeks or 21 weeks can present herself to hospital and say, I want an abortion. And no one legally can say in Queensland, no, you're not allowed to have an abortion, because she's in her rights to have an abortion. So that can be for any reason. You don't have to give a reason. And within that, it's actually implicitly legalising sex-selective abortion. So sex-selective abortion is when a baby is terminated based on their gender, on their sex. Typically, a woman finds out the gender of her child, the sex of her child, between 16 to 20 weeks, or she can find out earlier at about 10 weeks gestation from a blood test. So there would be people, because as the law sat, abortion for sex-selective abortion was illegal, but now it's implicitly legalised because it's abortion on request up to 22 weeks. So this is a big problem, because globally there's 100 million missing girls due to sex-selective abortion. And we've seen in Victoria, which this legislation is modelled off, there has actually been sex-selective abortion, and there's less girls born in Victoria as a result. Another thing, the full-term abortion.
So much for female empowerment.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly it. It's just absolutely diabolically bad in every way. And yeah, exactly. People are like, oh, this is female empowerment. No, not only are you killing babies, but in the number who are female, but even more extra female babies under this set of law will be killed. It's just extraordinary. It's just terrible. But then after 22 weeks, up until birth, they've got a provision for abortion to be allowed for social reasons, psychological or physical reasons. Now, there is a requirement for a second doctor, but the second doctor doesn't have to cite the woman or her file. The so-called approval can either be a phone call or an email. And if there's no second doctor, there's no legal penalty. So the old saying, a law without a penalty is no law at all. So there's no legal ramifications. As well as that, there's no requirement for the second doctor to be independent of getting financial gain or impartial to the whole process. For example, it could be one abortionist to another. Murray Stopes is the biggest abortion provider in Australia. It could be an abortionist in a Murray Stopes clinic saying to his or her mate, hey, I've got a woman here who's 38 weeks. Yeah, they'll be like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's just really, really, really bad. So, I mean, basically, Victoria, which has exactly the same wording around getting an abortion, that their cutoff there is 24 weeks on request, but then 24 weeks on to birth is exactly the same wording as Queensland. So for social reasons, psychological or physical reasons, and that actually led to, on average, a 40% increase in late-term abortions, abortions past 20 weeks gestation. So people are saying, the abortion lobby's like, abortion decriminalisation leads to less abortions around the world. And we're like, well, that's a load of rubbish. We have the data, but also it's counterintuitive because the abortion lobby says things like, oh, sorry, I'm getting off track. I'll come back to that thought later. The other thing, beg your pardon, the other thing, this law doesn't give doctors a full conscientious objection. So if a doctor doesn't agree with abortion and a woman says, I want an abortion, under this law, he has to refer for abortion. So he has to refer the woman to somebody who will help her with her abortion. So either someone who will perform the abortion or will be able to refer her on. So legally, that doctor is bound to be part of the abortion process. That's a huge, huge thing right there. That's a very serious thing. I know the first couple of weeks this bill was tabled. A number of our associate doctors contacted Cherish Life and said, I will leave medicine if this goes through. I'm going to move to New South Wales because I won't be forced to refer for abortion. I can't be part of the abortion process. So this law makes them legally, and it's actually an offence for them not to refer. So it's absolutely disgraceful.
I was just going to say, with that, so the conscientious objection,
yeah,
you have to refer,
yeah,
but you don't have. Basically, it's you don't have to do the abortion, but you have to give me somebody who will.
Yeah, that's it. Or refer me to actually someone who will perform the abortion, or will then help me with my abortion request. In an emergency, they would have to do an abortion, and there was only very loose under the law, and there was only very loose criteria about what constitutes abortion. I was talking to one of our associate doctors, a young GP here in Brisbane, and she was like, I'm really worried about this. She said, particularly in rural and regional areas, those doctors might be the only one in the area, and if a woman goes to him and is like, I'm having an emotional meltdown, my partner said he's going to leave me if I don't have an abortion. Well, they're the only doctor in the area, and according to that woman, that could be an emergency, whereas that doctor's like, this isn't a real emergency. You know what I mean? So my friend, the doctor in Brisbane's really worried about the interpretation of that part of the law. So very big concerns. There's also, as I said, no practical safeguards. A lot of women are coerced into an abortion, where they're quite overtly or subtly. Partners, parents, husbands, financial situations, even bosses. I've heard of someone saying, well, you are going to get rid of it, aren't you? Their manager said that to them because they didn't want her to go on, maternity leave for 6 months. I mean, coercion's huge, and not a good set of laws, but at least a more fair set of laws would have said, at least we'll put in some safeguards to make sure women aren't being coerced. Like, I shouldn't say fair. I said, if this law was actually pro-woman, which the side who pushed it said it is, there would be provision here to check women aren't being coerced into an abortion, but there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. This law is not pro-choice. This law is actually pro-abortion. This is all they're advocating for. They're not advocating for rights for women. They're literally advocating for rights for abortionists. That's the only one who's benefiting out of this financially, or at all. They've got a huge financial gain. But so there's nothing to. There's no counselling, there's no cooling off periods, and there's no informed consent conditions. It's terrible, terrible laws. As I said, built on Victoria, some of the most brutal legislation in the world. There's no requirement for the baby to be anaesthetised. So there's a body of evidence that shows after about 16 weeks gestation, a child, an unborn human being, will feel extreme pain during an abortion procedure. They respond to stimuli from about that gestational period. It's a scientific medical evidence shows, and yet there's no requirement to anaesthetise these children when they're going to abort them, even full term. And Victoria, exactly the same. It's really bad, really, really bad. Yeah, we have to get rid of it.
Just with that, because when the goal here is to get pro-life politicians into government who will put bills against it, either to repeal this current bill or to put in some kind of restrictions, I've heard of things mainly in America, like no pain bills, to try and either get abortions before 16 weeks or to have some kind of to anaesthetize the child, basically, so that at least if abortions are going ahead, that we can try and restrict the abortions and limit what kind of pain is felt by the aborted children. So is there a possibility of that in Queensland? If we can't get any other laws, would we be able to push like no pain bills?
Oh, definitely. I'd be pushing whatever I could, whatever gives some dignity and recognition back to the unborn. I would want definitely more than that, but that is a kind of like a last resort. At least anaesthetize them, at least do that, at least give them that dignity. But yeah, definitely. I would, if it was me, I would, if I had my way, I'd say it's completely illegal. This is me. And
me too.
But yeah, but unless a woman's life is at serious risk, and I'm not talking like she broke up with a boyfriend, I'm talking like serious risk. An example would be an ectopic pregnancy, as I said earlier, where, if that, the baby usually actually dies in the fallopian tube, so the pregnancy has to be removed so the fallopian tube doesn't explode and the woman or get infected and the woman pass away and the child's usually already deceased. Those are very, very rare, but something like that, even I think Christian doctors would say like, well, that's fine. And also when you think of the Old Testament with law, the Mosaic laws, you could actually kill if you're going to save your own life, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, well, it's self-defense in that point. Not that we don't ever think baby's going to take people's life, but in the very rare instance where it's like, well, unless you end this pregnancy, you are going to pass away, then would be like, most pro-life people would be like, well, that's acceptable. Very, very rare circumstance.
I think one of the things with an ectopic pregnancy is because, well, basically, there is no chance for the child really to live. If the child's in the fallopian tube, it will die. And the choice is either the child dies and takes the mother with it, or the child dies and we manage to save the mother. And even then, this would be an extreme emergency case. And even then, we would still grieve the loss of a life and have to treat it as this is still a baby dying, that it doesn't change the matter just because of this extreme circumstance.
That's exactly it. That is exactly it. And it's still a life no matter how small as well, because some people have said, what if it was 8 weeks, the cutoff was 8 weeks or 12 weeks? I said, well, it's better in the regard there would be less abortions. I said, but it's still a life. No matter how small, it is still human life. And I can never condone abortion on request because it is human life. It's like saying, oh, you can kill someone because they're really short almost. Do you know what I mean? Or they've got this, therefore, no, human life is human life from conception until natural death. So that's definitely my strong viewpoint, as well as the pro-life community I represent. It is from conception until natural death, we need to protect and cherish human life. Another example would be, and this kind of shocked me when I first heard it, not being a doctor myself, my background's actually economics and now advocacy as well. They said if a woman, and this is a doctor, if a woman has a very, very bad case of preeclampsia and she's very likely, the likelihood of her having a stroke is hugely high, what they will do, they'll try to get, I'm talking about a pregnant woman, they'll try to get the woman to a point of viability, and then they'll induce labour, knowing the baby will come early. Get the woman to a point where her baby is viable. So whether that's 23, 24 weeks, then they'll induce labour early and they'll quickly give the baby medical care. They know that there's a very big risk the baby may pass away, but they said we justify that because the mother will pass away, then we'll lose both lives if we don't intervene. And there might be some cases where they can't get the woman to the point of viability and they induce labour early. They put the baby on the mother's breast. I've heard of one of this case, and just give the baby love and it passes away. So when I first heard it, it broke my heart. But I also have to acknowledge there's medical things I don't understand as well. I'm like, I don't understand all the complexities. I have to trust Christian doctors when they say very occasionally this will happen. But yeah, once again, it's less than 1%, absolutely less than 1%, far less than 1%, probably 0.001% of cases. So I think abortion does need to be under the criminal code, particularly for on-request abortions. I'm not sure, as I said, not when a woman's life is in serious risk, because it rightly instructs that taking human life is very serious and we need to protect human life. And also it serves to people who may try to push women into abortion that actually know you're trying to take human life and this is actually illegal and you can be in trouble for this. I think we also really dramatically need to build up life culture. But yeah, I would want painkiller for the unborn. If we can't repeal these laws or amend them in a big way, which I'd hope we would. I think doctors have the right to full conscientious objection. These laws need a lot of work. It's just like, oh, you couldn't get much worse laws. But we'll do our best.
I was just going to say the main goal is to repeal the laws, get abortion under the criminal code, and always go for the top, and then basically see where we get.
That's it. And we also, that's really good, Jake. I agree. Go for what you can get, and then you can negotiate if you can't. The other thing is there are about 14,000 abortions under the laws that we just had up until a little while ago. Or, sorry, the bill's actually going to be properly formalised, I think, on the 3rd of December by the Governor of Queensland. But there were 14,000 abortions. I mean, it's possible if we got a good Conservative government in, even if the laws couldn't be repealed for whatever way, we could put so much infrastructure around the law we could put so many amendments through, we could actually get it down to 5,000 abortions a year. Do you know what I mean? We could, so that would be a better outcome than even what we have now. So it would be amazing, miraculous that out of this disaster, God has made something good happen, Less abortions every year would be a really big thing. Yeah.
I think one thing it's now been hindered is the now being able to preach and educate women who are contemplating abortions. Now they've put up these, quote, safe zones around the abortion clinics that you can't even talk to these people to talk them out of it.
Yeah, and that's actually unbelievably bad. Sorry, I forgot to chat about that. Exclusion zones, or they call them safety zones. I call them bubble zones. It's like in an unreal world. All they're protecting is the abortion industry. Cherish Life, actually, we never, because we're a lobbyist and an advocacy group, we never ask our people to go in front of abortion clinics, but we respect people's democratic right to, demonstrate outside abortion clinics peaceably. Absolutely peaceably, offer peaceable counsel, or even pray. A lot of our supporters used to participate in something called 40 Days for Life, where there'd be a 24-hour rotation outside abortion clinics, literally praying for abortion to stop. And they should be able to do that. It's diabolical that people can't. I mean, if people have been a nuisance, there's already laws, public nuisance laws, where they can be moved on. So any drama outside abortion clinics, the police should have enforced public nuisance laws. There's no reason why people shouldn't be peaceably standing outside abortion clinics, talking to people, offering help, and praying. But obviously we can't do that now because it's a year imprisonment. So I just hope no one I know does. I'm like, please don't get arrested. There's a bigger fight, The
one thing that I find most sad about that is, this is something, I think I spoke about this on one of my other podcasts, where as a Lutheran, I believe that we're justified by faith, and I also believe that children in the womb, from the point of conception, can have faith to believe the gospel and be saved. And so it's my goal as a Christian to preach the gospel to all people. That includes the unborn. And so the hope that, if we could stand outside these abortion clinics, and if a woman comes to abort the baby, I may not be able to stop her from aborting the child, but maybe I can have a moment to just preach the gospel to her and the child in her womb, so that if she does abort the child, at least that child has the chance to hear God's word and come to faith, and even if the mother aborts it, that child would have the ability to, by faith, enter into eternal life. But if we have these exclusion zones, I can't do that. My only hope is, hopefully, I could talk to a woman before she goes anywhere near the abortion clinic. But, it just takes that kind of avenue for mission and preaching these days by putting these inclusion zones there.
I feel like there are getting more barriers to the gospel. I know this is external to this abortion discussion we're having, but I feel like you've really highlighted a real issue that a lot of Australia is beginning to face. There's almost hostility to the gospel. That's what it feels like at times. And this exclusion zone is definitely, I think, a symptom of that. So, Yeah, me personally, my faith, I believe that all the aborted babies go to heaven, and I'm not representing Cherish Life when I say this, and I love Cherish Life. I have to bear in mind we are a secular lobby group. I myself am a Christian, but yeah, I believe all babies go to heaven because they're innocent. They don't have capacity to sin because they haven't got that type of that developed consciousness yet. But yeah, that's my hope. I hope, yeah.
I was just going to comment on that. I mean, don't want to start a big theological debate at this point in time, but as a Lutheran, I believe that original sin is there from the point of conception, and that all people will be held accountable for their sin unless they, through faith, come to Jesus. So, for me, I don't have an instant all babies go to heaven. It's those babies in the womb that have received faith will go to heaven, and those babies in the womb that don't have faith will go to hell. So that, for me, it's actually quite saddening when I hear that there are women who are aborting their babies before they get that chance to hear the gospel, because they're aborting them, sending them to hell, and those children haven't even had the chance to hear the gospel so that they have the chance to get to heaven. And that's the thing that, for me as a Lutheran, that really breaks my heart, that I go, I want to get this message to those children, because if I don't get that to them, then their salvation is at risk if I don't get the chance to bring that gospel message to them. And so I would rather be able to get the message to the women before they abort the babies, or hopefully not have the babies aborted at all, so that the babies could be born and have a chance to go to church, or, you know, just grow up an atheist, but one day run into a Christian and then hear the gospel message. By just aborting, we're just completely taking away that chance there for the gospel to be preached to these people.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Definitely, obviously, a little bit of theological difference. But I mean, I just worry about the mothers as well. Like, I grieve the babies every day. I think about the unborn for many years, and the pain they must feel, and the rejection. They would know that something's wrong, especially the later term ones. They'd know that their mother doesn't love them and something's horribly wrong, like, and the physical pain. But I also worry about the women, because that's a grievous to have, you know, that to do that to your heart and your soul, you know what I mean? And to have that, it would be, I've got a number of close friends who did that before they knew Jesus. Some of them still don't know Jesus, and they didn't recover well. They really didn't recover well. And one of them 10 years later still prays about the son she aborted, and she knows she's forgiven, and she believes he went to heaven. And but the grief, you know, but a lot of women don't recover. And that's something they have to live with their whole life. But then as a Christian, I believe they'll have to then, you know, like all of us, on Judgment Day, give account to God for their life. And that's also a serious thing. And that's one of the reasons I do what I do, because I really care about the women as well as the babies. But I'm like, I don't want them to do that for many reasons. And also one of the reasons is them. And, you know, very, very serious. Yeah. I think it's actually the worst atrocity of our time, Jake. Just globally, millions and millions of babies every year. And people say it's a right. I mean, even that in itself, that thinking is so wrong. So yeah, I thank you for tackling this difficult issue. Bless you.
One question I was going to ask then, going back to the laws. So with the abortion laws, if a woman wants to abort her baby, she can just go now into abortion clinic, kill the baby. If, for example, that woman didn't want to abort the baby, but she wanted to keep the child, and she was attacked by somebody and that attacker killed the child in her womb, is there laws then actually saying to that man, well, you've killed a baby, that's a criminal offence? Or will they just say to that attacker, sorry, it's just a fetus, it's not a baby, it's not murder, we'll just class it as assault?
No, you struck a really good point, Jake. Yeah, no, the law is very contradictory on that. A couple of weeks ago, you may have read in the paper, probably a couple of months ago now, a man in the Gold Coast killed his partner, and his partner was pregnant with a baby. She was she was 10 to 12 weeks gestation, so only a 3-month-old baby at most. And he was charged with double murder. and he's serving the sentence concurrently, so for the murder of her life, but also the baby. That baby was wanted. You said something very poignant. That baby was wanted. So although you can get an abortion on request up to 22 weeks in Queensland, and then after that, for if a second doctor signs off, who can be, doesn't even have to see the file, as we spoke about, that's perfectly lawful. And in fact, people who try to stop that can then be put in jail for 1 year. So if you go outside an abortion clinic and say, please don't, I'll help you, you can go to jail. I could go to jail. But they say that's perfectly lawful. But this man who killed a woman and her unborn child because she wanted that child, even though it was 10 to 12 weeks gestation, he got charged with double murder. So the law is very contradictory.
So basically now the personhood and humanity of the child in the womb really just depends on whether the mother wants it or not. If the mother doesn't want it, well, then it's not a person, I can kill it. If the mother wants it, well, it's a person, you can't kill it.
That's it. You've struck the nail on the head. Apparently, I asked the Attorney General when they first tabled the bill, we had a briefing with a number of pro-life groups, and some church leaders were there as well from different denominations. And I said, look, I'm very disturbed. These are very late gestation. I was talking about on the request to 22 weeks. And then obviously after that, I said, these are very late gestational periods. And I said, was there any consideration for the rights of the personhood given at any stage in this process? And she said, the rights of the woman are paramount. That was it. So basically the right of a woman to kill or to keep her baby is higher than any other right, even the right to life. That's basically what she said without using those words. But she did say the right for a woman to choose is paramount. So it's very bad. We have to we have to actually replace a lot of these MPs. They've shown they're not worthy to be in government. And I say that respectfully. I know we're to respect all authority, but I know also the ways are higher, and he calls himself life. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus' ways are paramount, and he certainly, we know this. He doesn't want this. And we're like, these MPs have to go. I hope the Attorney General's seat is given to someone else at the election. Just it's like it doesn't. The paradigm I can't even understand. That one of the things, and I feel like I should explain this issue, is they feel offended when I say abortion to birth. I said this law allows for abortion to birth for social reasons, and I've had Jackie Trad and others criticise me and Cherish Life, who I'm leading at the moment, very vehemently for that. And they said, well, no woman would do that. And I said, well, hang on, this law is built on Victoria, and women in Victoria have chosen to abort their child full term, healthy baby to healthy mother. This has happened in Victoria, 2011, a full term baby got aborted for social reasons, and it was a healthy baby, healthy mum, as well as 10 other babies who were in the third trimester that year. So it has happened. There's late-term abortions, as I said, 40% increase in Victoria. And they get offended because they're like, you're saying like women are evil. It's like, no, I'm not saying women are evil. I'm saying this is a law that you allow. I said, I'm not saying whether they're evil or they're good. This is what you're saying. It's okay to abort up into birth. And in fact, it does happen, even though you say it doesn't happen. And the other thing, you are assuming that it's always a woman's choice. Women are actually often pressured, and some women feel like it's their only choice because you're not giving them real choice. If you say, you know what, you're homeless, we can help you with housing. You're lonely, we can put you in a mother's group. Oh, your partner's abusive to you, there's some housing over there. Do you know what I mean? If they actually were solution-minded instead of abortion-minded, there'd be far less abortions. So they get very offended when they think that you're saying every woman is not, some amazing God who makes perfect decisions. But actually, during the debate on this, Dan Purdy, who's the member for Ninderi, so up near Currumbin area, the sunny coast, he got up and he said, he was very respectful. He said, a lot of you have been saying, what mother would do that? He said, I'm sorry, I worked as a police officer, and he said, every single day, parents would hurt their children. He goes, I wish it was the truth that people never hurt their children. He said, but the images that are stuck in my head that I wish would go away type of thing, every day parents hurt their children. So for you to say what woman wouldn't do that to her family, you're insulting to women type of thing, what woman would do that to their baby? He's like, well, I know people have hurt their children. They're born children. Of course this is going to happen if you allow it. It brought a lot of logic to the debate instead of this offense. It's like this extreme feminism, which says it's okay to kill your children, which is completely ridiculous and disgusting, to be quite honest. And it's a lie. We shouldn't be telling any women that it's okay to kill your children. We shouldn't be telling any woman that a man doesn't have a choice, doesn't have a voice when his partner's pregnant. That's a lie as well. Men should have a voice. We shouldn't be saying to women abortion is birth control. All of these things are absolute lies, but it comes out extreme feminism, that we should have equal reproductive rights. The thing is, men and women are different, but clearly, you know what I mean? We're never going to be equal physically because we are different physically. But they're like, we want equal reproductive freedom. It's like, well, you were different, and killing a child really doesn't make you equal. We're up against a very weird ideology, and I think the only way to really deal with it is actually get rid of it. Make sure the majority of people in government don't have that ideology.
I think one of the things you've hit the nail on the head is you talked about that they go, oh, well, no woman would do that, but then there are people out there who are wicked and will harm their children. And that there is this sense that also, now that these laws have changed, there is an increase in abortion. And I think, again, this is in Lutheranism, we talk about the three uses of the law, and the one that I think is most important here is what we call the first use, which is that the first use of God's law is to curb humanity. That humans, as the book of Genesis says, we are in our hearts, from conception, we are just wicked people. And if God left us to our own wills and desires, that we'd basically just turn on each other. And so God gives us the law in order to prevent us from being even more wicked than we would be if he just let us loose. And so that also relates with governmental laws, that in the secular realm, the government has to put in laws to prevent people from just going crazy and killing each other. That by actually saying that no, murder is wrong, assault is wrong, stealing is wrong, stuff like that, it prevents people from actually doing those things. And if you take those laws away, then you're just giving people the freedom to go and perform great wickedness.
That's true.
And so we do need these laws.
Yeah, you're right. We do need these laws. We absolutely need them. It was Aristotle, definitely not Christian, before the time of Christ. But people say he was a great philosopher, but he said the law is an educator, and I often use that when I'm speaking publicly to secular audiences or with politicians, because, as I said, Cherish Life is a secular group. Obviously, I'm a Christian, and there's many Christians, but when we say it's okay to kill a child up until 22 weeks, what are we telling people? What is it saying to young women who fall pregnant? What if, and also, doesn't matter. It's not really a human until it's born. I mean, that's a lie. We know that's an absolute lie, but that's what the law is telling them. Oh, don't worry, you can kill it up to 22 weeks. And then if you even want to have it after that, yeah, we can just find a second doctor who will just email the other doctor. That's fine. Yeah, social reasons is fine. That's what we're saying to people. That life in your tummy, that big tummy, that isn't actually worth a lot. That's just a choice. That isn't a person. That's a choice. That's what this law is saying. And that is completely wrong. It's a complete lie. It diminishes humanity, but it also it doesn't put value on something that's hugely valued. And also, if the woman, if she miscarries or if she has an abortion, many women, up to 1 in 5, will get a serious mental health issue after an abortion. A woman who's had an abortion is 6 times more likely to commit suicide. But it's not giving that woman permission to understand the loss. If you say, it's just a choice, it's not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? It so diminishes the unborn. It diminishes the whole process of pregnancy, the miracle of pregnancy, the miracle of life, the way a woman's feeling physically, emotionally, the attachment between a mother and a child, which is a God-given thing. It's very bad. I mean, it's bad because it doesn't put value on life, but it doesn't put value on mankind, because that's the way we all come into life. So
probably the most important thing we can do moving forward is that we need to change cultural opinion, and we need to educate people, because I think you've got it right there, that if we have a culture that says abortion is okay, then it will lead to more abortions. We need a culture that says, no, this is wrong, this is murder, you are taking a human life. That won't stop everybody, but it will hopefully at least curb society, that we will do it less, and that there should be a stigma around abortion. It shouldn't be seen as just an okay thing. We should actually look on it as that's something wrong.
Yeah, and alternatively, I guess the flip side to that is we celebrate life. Even if a woman's not in ideal situation, and she's lonely, scared, homeless, whatever, we're like, you know what, we can help you. We love you. That is a blessing. That child will be a blessing to you. That is an amazing human there. Doesn't, oh, okay, you're single. Oh, you're scared. Oh, you got no money. Who cares? It's a baby. Let us help you. You know what I mean? Celebrating life and getting alongside people who find themselves pregnant, and just having that mentality, like, actually, it's a real blessing to be pregnant. The Bible says that children are a blessing from the Lord. And that mentality, when we have that type of mentality, can really start to filter out to society. I think, I feel like, and this is speaking from a different perspective, but I feel like, we've got an opportunity. It's an absolute travesty what's happened, but there's actually a challenge before our feet to really influence culture and also get in the government that we want. So I would encourage people to join political parties and just be motivated to do the hard yards for a good result in 2 years, so we can really get a good government in. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on, and I hope that you continue to do the good work with Cherish Life. I hope God blesses the work of Cherish Life, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jake. You keep up the good work too. You're so special, and I love the Lutherans. Oh my gosh, you guys are doing an outstanding job. God bless you.
God bless. And thank you for coming on. And to my listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. I've been your host, Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.